Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear grade 12 students. Today we're going to do A Tale of Two Cities, Book 2, chapters 13, 14, and 15. The title of chapter 13 is The Fellow of Non-Delicacy. Fellow is a man, or like the guy. Uh, can you guess who this fellow is? The man of no delicacy? Right. This is Sidney Carton. One August afternoon, Carton decides to reveal his feelings to Lucy. Remember that three people were in love with Lucy, or they had feelings for Lucy. Mr. Stryver, the lawyer, and Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton. Carton tells her that although he is a hopeless case and can never reform, he can never reform. This is his own judgment about himself. She revived his old dreams of leading a good life. Lucy suggests that he may still be able to redeem his life, but he doesn't want to. He states that it is too late. He knows his nature and he will only sink lower. However, he wants her to know how deeply he loves her and that he would freely give his life. This is a very important part. He would freely give his life for her and anyone she loved. The analysis of this chapter: many characters have secrets in A Tale of Two Cities, but none reveals itself as painfully as Sidney Carton's does. Sidney Carton's secret reveals itself. He loves without hope, and his love for Lucy has made him aware of how much potential happiness he has squandered, he has wasted through his dissolute lifestyle, his not straight lifestyle. He tells her, I'm like one who died young. All my life might have been. Carton's situation somewhat parallels Dr. Alexander Manette's imprisonment because as a young man, Carton has buried himself alive with a long, empty life stretching before him. The strength of his love for a woman gives him the dream of freedom, but it also torments him because he cannot, also tortures him, pains him because he cannot have her. Unlike Dr. Manette, however, Carton inflicted his own imprisonment. He caused it. But Dr. Manette was imprisoned by the Marquis and his family, and he lacks the strength to recall himself to life. This is the summary and analysis of chapter 13. Chapter 14, the honest tradesman. As Jerry Cruncher, remember Jerry Cruncher, Tellson's porter. The porter, the man who used to sit with his son, Junior or young Jerry, in front of the bank, okay, like a messenger and a porter. As Jerry Cruncher sits outside Tellson's bank, he notices a funeral procession approaching, people yelling, spies. People yelling spies surround the hearse and the mourning coach. And Cruncher discovered that the funeral belongs to Roger Cly. Remember him? The spy, one of the spies who testified against Darnay in his trial. When the crowd tries to pull the sole mourner out of his coach, the mourner flees the scene. There was just one mourner, mourn this body. The crowd then begins to pull the coffin out of the hearse, but decides to accompany it to the graveyard instead. Cruncher joins the unruly procession, there was chaos everywhere, which grows larger as it moves along. When the coffin is finally buried, the mob, the people, begins assaulting passers-by and ransacking, looting businesses until a rumor of the police approaching breaks up the mob. When they heard that the police are coming, they stop this ransacking or looting. Meanwhile, Cruncher returns to Tellson's, stopping at a surgeon's on the way. He went to a surgeon's clinic on the way to do some business with him, maybe. Later that night, after seeing his wife and son to bed, Cruncher leaves his house carrying what? A sack, a crowbar, a strong bar of metal, a rope, and a chain. These are his tools which he uses to steal the bodies after they are buried and sell them to doctors. Curious about his father's mysterious nightly activities, young Jerry follows Cruncher. He follows his dad. Two men join Cruncher as he walks along, and the three of them soon reach the graveyard. As young Jerry watches with horror, Cruncher and his companions dig up a coffin and bring to pry it open and begin to pry it open. Young Jerry rushes home, terrified that the coffin is hopping after him. Tellson's and he awakes the next morning to find his father beating his mother. As young Jerry walks to Tellson's with his father, he asks his father what a resurrection man is. You know, a resurrection man is a man who digs up graves to steal the bodies and sell them to the. When Cruncher explains that it is a person who sells people's bodies, young Jerry pleases his father by saying that he wants to be a resurrection man when he grows up like his father. The analysis of this chapter is Charles Dickens uses the funeral procession to demonstrate how easily a rowdy crowd, a chaotic crowd, can become a destructive mob. Imagine there is, for example, or there are 1,000 people in the street, and they are led by a person who is organized or who knows what he is doing. This mob, this large number of people can destroy anything in their way. The actions of the crowd turn a solemn occasion. The funeral, you know, the funeral should be quiet, but it was a festive one, chaotic, noisy, with many of the crowd members not even aware of the cause of the uproar. They are shouting like the people who are shouting. The momentum of the mob, the force of the mob has swept them up, and they follow whatever spontaneous commands they hear. They are ready to obey any order. In this way, rational thinking individuals become mindless members. Even if you are a thinking person, you become a mindless member of a violent entity. For chickens, mobs are unstoppable forces. Mobs are unstoppable forces, frightening in their inhumanity. Within the funeral mob, however, one man pursues his own private agenda. One man has his own business. Jerry Cruncher, the messenger, the porter at Tellson's Bank. The reader discovers he is a resurrection man, a person who sells people's bodies or dead bodies, a grave robber, another word for it, resurrection man, a grave robber, or an excavator, and views Clyde's funeral as a business opportunity. Cruncher's work as a resurrection man parodies the resurrection theme that runs through A Tale of Two Cities. Whereas people such as Dr. Alexander Manette or the French peasants metaphorically return from their living graves through love or revolution, Cruncher literally digs fresh corpses from their graves to sell to surgeons or medical students. We have some glossary here. Bear, leader, someone who leads a trained bear from place to place for money. Public house, a tavern, an inn that provided or provides, at that time provided food and drink. Isaac Walton, the author of the Complete Angler, a fishing manual. Resurrection man, a man who digs up corpses and sells dead bodies, as we said. Chapter 15, knitting. A character in the novel was knitting all the time. Can you name him or her? Very good. Madame Dufour. The mender of roads, remember him? The man who told the Marquis that some guy was riding under his carriage on his way back to his countryside house. Okay? The mender of roads who spotted the man under the Marquis Saint Evremont's carriage accompanies Dufour. He is now in Paris, and he accompanies Dufour to the wine shop. Dufour's wine shop. In the garret where Dr. Alexander Manette stayed, Dufour and Jacques 1, 2, and 3. Listen to the road mender describe what happened to Gaspard. Gaspard was one of the jacks. The man who killed the Marquis. Remember Gaspard? Let me remind you, Gaspard, the Marquis's carriage ran down or ran over a child and killed him. The father's child is called Gaspard. Gaspard, who murdered the Marquis for running down his child, went into hiding for nearly a year after the killing. Then the French authorities recently captured, jailed, and hanged him. After killing the Marquis, in revenge for his son, he hid for 1 year and he was arrested, jailed, and hanged him and left his corpse dangling, suspended by the village fountain, with his shadow poisoning the atmosphere of the town. He was hanged there for a long time. Monsieur and Madame Defarge later take the road mender to Versailles, where the splendor of the court dazzles him, the court of the king and the queen. Caught up in the emotion of the experience, the road mender cheers the king, queen, and other nobles. They took him to see how those people, let's say, suck the blood of the peasants, but instead he cheers the king, the queen, and other nobles. The Defarge commend his behavior, blame him, feeling that it will fuel the courtiers' arrogance and ignorance of the revolutionary movement. Additionally, the Defarge believe that the sight of such luxury and finery will supply the road mender with a focus for his hatred and violence in the future. So, when the road mender cheered the king, the queen, and the noble people, Madame and Monsieur Defarge were angry because this cheering of the king, the queen, and the nobles would affect the track of the revolutionary movement. Additionally, the Defarge believe that the sight of such luxury and finery will supply the road mender with a focus for his hatred of those people who live in that luxury, while they, the peasants, the normal people, or the people of the French kingdom lived in poverty. The analysis, Gaspard's tortured death demonstrates how the cycle of violence in France is escalating. Death after death, killing after killing. The Marquis killed Gaspard's child with no regret. Gaspard retaliated, revenged by killing the Marquis, and then the French government hunted down and executed Gaspard. As a result, Madame Defarge condemns the entire Evremond family to death in her register. What's her register? Was she writing them down in a piece of paper? No, she was netting their names in her piece of cloth. From Dickens' perspective, violence can only lead to violence, and an uprising, a revolution of the oppressed people, the poor people, the oppressed people in France is inevitable, will happen soon. As influential members of the revolutionary movement, the Defarge represent different aspects of the rebellion. Both are leaders, but Defarge focuses on organizing the jackery, while Madame Defarge records in her netted registry. This paragraph is very important, guys. Remember it well, study it well. Again, while Defarge focuses on organizing the jackery, while Madame Defarge records in her netted registry the names of people marked for death. Defarge's actions so far reveal him to be a man who values fairness and justice. He was looking for or pursuing fairness and justice. His principles, for example, caused him to risk his life presenting a petition to the king to save Gaspard. On the other hand, Madame Defarge shows little concern for anything but her register of death. The mender of roads fear her implacable demeanor, and when he asks her what she makes, she replied, shrouds. You know what shrouds are. Shroud here is a cloth used to wrap a corpse, a dead body, for burial, winding sheet. Okay, so while Defarge seems to be working toward a system that will serve justice and save lives, his wife works single-mindedly toward a system of revenge and death. Again, he was working for justice and save lives, and his wife was working for or toward a system of revenge and death. Here we have the word crag. It's a steep rock that stands out from a rock mass. Okay, and this is the end of the analysis and summary of chapters 13, 14, and 15. Thank you very much.